Hello and welcome to the Harry Man Show, episode 83. Today we have David Nestor, just got off the road. Aaron Lewis is a renowned drum tech. How you doing, David?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Good. It's a pleasure to have you on, and the more I hear about you and your resume, I'm like more intrigued. This badass stuff you're doing.
Yeah. It's a hustler's life, I guess, is the way to put it. You got to stay busy, so that usually ends up meaning you work for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, touching base, what you just got off the road with Aaron Lewis. How did that go for you on that run?
It went really well. So I was actually drumming for Aaron, not drum teching. So I do drum as well, but I am probably more well known as a drum tech just because I've done it more and had probably a bigger resume in that field. But I'm breaking my way into the playing side of things, which is cool, which also offers its own challenges, just like any career. But I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing. So I am back and forth drum teching in between playing gigs. But yeah, I was out with Aaron Lewis from, I think we started May 3rd or 4th this year. And we were on and off tour all the way until October 2nd, doing full band stuff for his solo music.
Now, I'm a big fan of Aaron Lewis myself. I grew up listening to Stain. Was he incorporating any of that material in there as well?
Yeah, we would play more of a ballad version of Right Here.
Nice.
And also It's Been a While.
Nice.
And then he would usually come out after the full band set was done to do an acoustic set, and he would throw in Outside and every now and then another song or two, but for the most part, those three were like the primary ones he would take from Stained.
So how did that? Obviously, you're networking, you're in the circle with it, but how did that gig come about for you?
So last summer, I was drum teching for Korn. Ray Luzier is the drummer, really nice guy,
No shit.
great drummer.
Yeah.
And we did a summer run. Sorry, what were you saying?
I said no shit. That's badass.
Yeah, Ray's great, man.
I actually took a lesson from him once too.
Did you really? Yeah, totally worth it. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's done so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
But in any case, he and I got along really well. We were nerd out over drums daily. And the cool part was he didn't make me feel inferior at all. So I will always talk good things about Ray. Ray's a great guy and an amazing drummer. So both those things combined, it was a great experience. But Stained opened up for us for that tour. We did 2 months. They call it like a shed tour. So we did a lot of outdoor amphitheaters. And yeah, it was the end of summer. So it was like August into October. So it was just shy of 2 months, something like that. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's how I got to know the Stained crew. So a lot of times on tours like that, the crews have to work hand in hand just because we're bumping elbows all day long. So it helps when you get along with people, and I got along with them great. So I met their front of house guy, their monitor guy, their guitar tech, their drum tech, and the rest of the band members too. They were all super kind, and we gelled really well. And it just so happens that Aaron Lewis' old guitar tech, Cody Foot is his name. He is actually the bass player for Aaron's solo stuff, and he is the musical director as well. So he hires the band. So him and I have been friends ever since last summer. And then earlier on this year, he hit me up and asked me if I knew of any drummers because he knew I had a pretty strong drumming network. And I told him, I was like, you know what? I actually kind of want to take a little bit of a break from drum teching to drum. Would you guys be interested in letting me audition? I would love to give that an opportunity. He said, dude, I've seen you play. I've seen all your videos. The gig is yours if you want it. I actually didn't think you'd be interested. But yeah, if you want it, it's yours. So that was a really good feeling. Putting in the effort to making my own videos and putting that out there as like an online resume for situations just like this, it actually ended up working out. So I ended up getting the gig because of that.
It sounded like he was giving you the gig before you even asked. Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah, kind of, but like he didn't actually ask me to do the gig because, as you had said earlier, like I'm kind of well known as a drum tech, not really a drummer. And surprisingly, in the industry, a lot of people that are guitar techs, bass techs, drum techs, they actually don't play that instrument sometimes, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah, it is kind of odd. So I want to go back into your roots of being a drummer. I didn't know you were such a metal guy too. You mentioned going to Black Dahlia last week and all that too. But is that how it started for you, or are you kind of all over the place as far as influences?
Definitely started with metal, heavier metal or heavy rock. There were a lot of bands back in the day that didn't actually have necessarily screaming vocals, or a lot of people call it growling vocals, but you can still be a heavy band without having that style of vocal.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of cool heavy rock bands I grew up listening to, as well as heavy metal bands. So yeah, I started playing like the screamo scene with a lot of emo singing with screaming behind it, kind of like the Warped Tour days. That's really how I got into it, like Thrice and Atreyu and all those old bands.
Nice.
Kind of what I grew up playing and listening to, which is ironic because I ended up working for Atreyu for a Warped Tour.
Oh, really? Was that when Brandon was playing drums? Sailors, right?
Yeah, he was still playing. Yep.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started in the scene. I didn't really do drums in school. I didn't do orchestra or marching band or anything, but I was always interested in music because my family is pretty musical, but more on the religious side. They play in churches. Mm-hmm. And I played soccer my whole life, and I wanted to get into sports somehow, and I ended up switching gears around 16 when I really started to dive into drums, because I started right around 15 or 16. So yeah, that's when I kind of gave up doing the soccer as my career choice or somewhere in sports to, I really want to pursue music, just because I fell in love as soon as I started playing. I was not good, and there's always more to learn and always room to get better, but I would film myself at all these little local shows I would play, and that would be the best way to find out what I was doing wrong or what I needed to fix or switch or how to look better live and all of that. So it was a good idea when I started to use my parents' old camcorder. This is before like iPhones were out. So yeah, it was an interesting way to start. But yeah, local metal scene in Dayton, Ohio.
So are you still residing at it, or are you in Nashville, or is Ohio these days?
I'm in Nashville.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. It's more of a scene there. But was there any like career choice, or were you just going to be drums the rest of your life? Was that just kind of a made decision in your teens?
No. So I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to play drums. I didn't care how I would do it, and I did not have a lot of experience. I was still in high school, so I just kept playing as many shows as I could. I would deliver pizza to pay for my gear because I didn't grow up in like a super wealthy home or anything. I had to buy all my own stuff. So that was kind of one of the reasons why I didn't really start earlier. I asked for drums when I was younger. They just didn't really happen. I didn't get them.
Yeah.
So I ended up, buying my first kit at 16 from a friend. It was like a Franken kit, so it was a bunch of different colors and different brands, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to play.
Nice.
So yeah, that's exactly how I started playing in local bands in the Dayton scene. We had a few little clubs that teenagers could play that were they called them Christian clubs because they were ran by churches just to make it like a safe place for us to go and just jam.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
that's how it started, man.
And then obviously that you have a successful career in playing drums and teching, but were you kind of a gear geek when the teching came about? Or how did you catch that bug?
Well, not to bore you with too much of my background when it came to I was married for a brief time, and during that time, it was between 22 and 28. I was married for about 6 years. I didn't really play very much. I played in a local church in Cincinnati. I was full-time construction. My career path at the time, mostly because of the way that my marriage was working, was not allowing me to tour and not allowing me to pursue music as a full-time career. Because to be honest with you, from I guess I'll say a normal standpoint, the music industry is not looked at as an actual career path for people that are more traditional.
Sustainable.
Yeah, they don't think it's sustainable when really there is so many different aspects of the music industry where you can make a very good living and you can actually do very well for yourself if you play your cards right. You just got to know what you're doing when you come into the industry, but also be willing to learn and willing to grow and willing, constructive criticism is huge, but starting out with smaller bands and touring in vans and trailers and stuff is what I did before I got married. So I played drums for a band called My Children, My Bride. That was the first band I ever toured with. They were like a heavy metal band.
Can I jump in front of you there for a second? You mentioned some really important factors of becoming successful in the music industry. What do you think is like the key core components that you would tell yourself even if you went back? Advice to anyone coming up in that too, without getting discouraged.
I would say, when I decided to stop playing music was one of my biggest mistakes because I had to make up that lost time.
Yeah.
I'm only 35, but I lost about 6 or 7 years when I was married and decided that through her convincing and me just kind of letting her run things, that it was not a good career path or a good choice for anybody that wanted to be either a dad or a family man or somebody that can take care of their family financially, which I know now is all false. That's not true at all. Every career that you choose, whether you choose to go in the music industry or any other industry, there are ways to find success. And you don't have to necessarily do it the traditional way. I definitely didn't. So after my first few tours, I quit touring. So when I tried to get back into touring, that's actually why I became a drum tech. It's because when I got divorced in 2015, I was like, all right, I'm quitting this construction job. I want to get back on the road. I love music. I need to be involved in music somehow. So I started reaching out to my small network because it kind of dwindled down from when I first started touring because people thought I was like retired, basically.
Yeah.
And that's when All That Remains was looking for a drum tech. And I knew their guitar tech and tour manager. They were friends of mine from Cincinnati. And they were like, yeah, we'd love to have you out, man. We need somebody like ASAP. Can you come out like next week? So I got divorced in August, and then I was on tour in September.
I want to say congratulations, but I don't want to sound harsh.
No, it was a great thing. I mean, she's better off now. She's happy with who she's with, and I'm happy where I'm at, definitely. So, like, we're both great. You can tell me congrats, because we would both say we are definitely happier.
No, I meant that as a compliment, but, like, was it just, did you have any kind of, like, shell shock from jumping into a gig that big right away?
No, not at all. I mean, it was cool to get on a tour bus again, because I actually did merch briefly for the Devil Wears Prada when I was like 20.
Oh, nice.
Because their merch guy quit briefly, and I was friends with those guys because they're from the Dayton area, so we all kind of grew up in the same scene. And they knew that I wanted to be full-time in music. They're like, well, you can't drum for us. Daniel's a drummer, but like we need a merch guy. You can totally come out and do that. We'll pay you. I said, cool.
Nice.
So that was my first bus tour. And then obviously took the break when I was married. When I came back to it, it was great to get back on a bus. And I dove in head first, man. I nerded out over drums like I had in the past, and it felt good to be able to like talk drums with the drummer, find out what drum heads he would want to use, what his techniques are, what his practice routine is, and all of that. So it was natural for me, to be honest.
So speaking of gear, I kind of want to bring up your current setup. You just started playing the Matrix Saturn Evolution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Nice.
Yep, just got it.
Is that the maple walnut or just the walnut?
It's the maple walnut.
Nice. I actually just got the same set myself.
Did you really?
Yeah. I
think I saw some videos of you playing it.
Yeah, and actually, that's like, and I know a lot of people say this, but that's probably like one of the easiest kits I've ever tuned. I don't know what it is.
Really? So
I just put.
You actually have the Saturn Evolution, or do you have the Saturn?
It's the Saturn.
Okay, so the Saturn has the walnut for the inner flat, correct?
Yeah, it's maple on the outside, walnut on the inside.
Yeah. This one only has one or two plies that are inside the drum that are maple, or no, that are walnut. Sorry, and then the inner ply is maple. So that's the difference, I think, between the. It's more of a hybrid kit than the Saturn series is. A little bit more anyway. But yeah, the Saturn series with that walnut on the inside, those things sound killer.
Yeah, I simply just put some Emperors on it, and it kind of just was easy to tune. I don't know. Especially in a dead room, it just worked out really well.
Yeah, nice, man.
So what's your configuration of that kit? Do you have 1 up, 2 down on that one?
I do for the Aaron Lewis gig, so I've only used it for that. And I know we're going to go over my studio that I'm currently trying to build, nice. But I don't have a setup at my house right now because our house is smaller than the house I lived in Dayton, and there's not a lot of room for me to set up a full kit because her office is right next to this spare room, and she works from home, and she does interviews all day long on the phone, so there's no way that I can play, really.
Yeah.
So I have an electronic kit that I jam on. It's nothing special, but it gets the job done to at least stay somewhat in shape drum-wise. But yeah, the configuration that I purchased, which when you have an endorsement, a lot of people don't know, they don't always give you free drums. It's discounted for sure. But when I bought the kit, it was a 10, 12, 14, 16 configuration with a 20-inch kick. Nice. I just posted actually yesterday a full kit run through on my Instagram and Facebook to get a chance to watch them. It has like kind of the sizes and everything, and then I'm using the Black Panther Persuader snare, which is a hand-hammered brass snare, and it's a 14 by 6.5, and it sounds killer.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's the kit right now. I don't have any other Mapex drums just yet because I honestly just signed a deal with them in September, right before I went on tour, drum teching for Stains. And then during that tour, I purchased my kit and picked it up as soon as I got home from that tour because 2 days after I got home, we loaded up the trailer and went out for 5 more dates with Aaron Lewis.
Oh, so you didn't even get a chance
and the State Liners.
You didn't even get a chance to break it in at that point.
No, not at all. So I seriously, no joke. We had our semi at one of the places where we load our lights here in Nashville. So all of our gear was in there. So I took the boxes with my drums still, my brand new drums still in the boxes in my car directly to Premier Global, unloaded from the boxes, took out my old drums from the cases, put those in my car, put my drums in the new cases, switched around the kick drum head logo or logo head, whatever, and then put it in the trailer. And then I saw it the next day and changed the heads out because I didn't have time to do that when they were loading the trailer or whatever. So it was seriously like unboxing straight into the cases. So the only time I actually got to check the sound with them and like tune them up and stuff was like right before sound check the next day.
Nice. So with that 20-inch kick, what's your go-to heads on that kit so far? I know you just got it, but what are you running as far as heads on that?
Right now, I haven't tested a ton, obviously, because I only played 5 shows with it. But I ran EC2s on the toms, and I had an EMAD on the kick, and then the snare. I almost always use an HD dry,
nice,
or an ST dry, and those are all Evans heads. They don't have to be Evans, but that's just my preference currently. Yeah. But before I used the EC2s on my Spawn kit, which is all North American maple, which also sounds really good. It was the same configuration, 20-inch kick, 12-inch rack, 14, 16 floors. I was using the hydraulic glass heads, and those things sound awesome.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Just EC2s, EMAD, and then the HD drive.
So in your years of being professional, teching other drums and stuff like that, what are your go-to live mics? What would be your first preference?
Man, I've used so many different mics over the years. So when it comes to my preference, if I own the mics, a lot of it has to do with budget. Because you know how expensive they can be.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, SE has been great. They make some killer microphones. Lately, a lot of people have been changing over from like Sennheiser or Shure brand to SE. But I like a combination, to be honest with you. So like when I get my studio set up here at the house, and I bought a shed that I'm turning into a drum shed, an actual drum studio.
I saw that. It looks badass.
Yeah, I'm really excited, man. So like I saved all of my money from working all year, and so I had a little bit saved up to be able to make this happen because I knew moving into this new house that we didn't have an opportunity to have anywhere. There's no basement here. A lot of houses in Tennessee don't have them. So I didn't have a chance to utilize any rooms. So in any case, right now I'm using 2 Behringer overheads that are just standard, like condenser overheads. I have 2 Shure SE, or no, wait, sorry, not SE, the Shure, I think the 57s, I think is what I'm using for the snare on top and bottom.
Nice.
And then when it comes to the kick, I wish I had more, which I'm hoping to get more, but I need to get a second interface to be able to add more microphones. But I do want to use at least 2 or 3 mics to mic my kick when I record. Yeah. But currently I'm only using the 91. I'm pretty sure the Beta 91.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I haven't upgraded my tom mics, but I'm saving up because of how expensive they can be. I really, really, really want some expensive ones. But I can't afford them right now, so I'm just using a set of CAD mics that I've had for forever, and they sound fine. They get the job done when it comes to the toms. So I mean, it's a pretty simple setup. 1 kick mic, 2 snare mics, usually 4 toms, which takes up like the majority of the microphones I have, and then 2 overheads. And then if I have enough inputs, then I at least try to do 1 room mic, which is usually just a regular condenser microphone.
Yeah. So as we're talking about your studio, what services do you plan on offering out of it? Are you going to be doing drum tracks? Are you going to be giving lessons? What kind of projects were you going to do there?
All of the above. So I'm still giving drum lessons. There just aren't as many out there because I'm still trying to build my name. So I do it sometimes, just not often, and I really enjoy it. Just giving my experience and my know-how from working with so many big artists as a drum tech is pretty valuable, even if people don't see me as the drummer they look up to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of that knowledge is priceless in my opinion. But the studio is going to be primarily used to record because I already have a few artists that are trying to commission me to record for them. But instead of going to a local studio, I want to finish building mine and see if my build and tones and recording can be equivalent, if not better, than some of the studios in the area, so then I can be competitive with recording. I'm hoping to put out videos, maybe some playthrough of some of Aaron's songs, drum covers for fun, and resume builders. But then, yeah, a lot of remote drum lessons and recording. And then if anybody wants to start jamming, because I have a couple guys that want to maybe write some music with me
Nice.
in the area, I might have them over because there should be more than enough room for them to set up some amps in there and jam with me. So
if
that's
one were
the goal.
to inquire about lessons, would reaching out on social media be the best way to reach you for that?
Yeah, either Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or if you just go to davidnestor.com, there's a contact page where you can send me an email through the actual website, and then it has links to the rest of my social media on that actual website.
Oh, nice. Now we're talking about your teaching. What are you taking all levels? Are you taking a beginner, expert, or are you just open to all levels at this point?
It really depends because I don't have a traditionalist way of teaching. I know it's important for a lot of people that have been fully educated in the drumming world, that guys that have master's degrees in percussion performance or in music theory or just in music in general. They could teach circles around me when it comes to certain aspects of drumming. Uh-huh. Especially like reading sheet music, I could teach you, but I'm not very fluid with it. When it comes to rudimental stuff, I never did marching bands, so I'm aware of them and I can do the majority of them, but I actually only use like the first 4 or 5 rudiments. I don't necessarily think as a full kit player it's a necessity, in my opinion, to have all 40 plus rudiments memorized and being able to do them like flawlessly is really that important to full kit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does open up creativity and ability to change up beats a lot more. And in the future, if I get extra time, if I'm not busy hustling, which is going to take a little while to get to that point, I might do a deep dive down that road, But yeah, my lessons are a little more on the side of like, this is how I became, a professional drummer, and this is how I became a professional drum tech. And here are the tools that I used and that I continuously use for practice routines, for stretching, for networking, for live performances, on how to be a better drummer when it comes to live shows, be less nervous, how to memorize music, because I've had to play cover band shows for years, which I'm happy that I don't do that anymore. But learning a 60 plus song set for one gig is something that I've had to do in the past in like less than 48 hours. Yeah, it is and it isn't. You just got to know. You got to know how your own brain works when it comes to memorizing things.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of these Nashville Broadway drummers, you'll see them have like a music stand, and they have charts. So they'll be reading charts like what the drums are supposed to be played during the songs, which I don't necessarily like. It doesn't feel real to me.
Yeah, it feels a little mechanical at that point.
Yeah, I'm not knocking them, right? Because I can't do the charting thing that those guys do, so I commend them for doing it. But if somebody asked me to come fill in for them, if it was a cover band show, I would just ask him to send me the set list, and I would just learn it.
Nice. Now, you're actually a pro at doing this, but are you going to offer like tuning lessons or any kind of like insight on how you tune drums as well?
Yeah. I actually did during the pandemic. I tried to do a tech tutorial series. The guy I was doing videos with, it just didn't work out, us working together. But I did 4 different tech tutorials where the videos are really cool. So I did like how to clean your cymbals, how to change drum heads in tune, and quite a few other things in those other 2 videos. But yeah, I'm always willing to give lessons on that. And actually, people have reached out to me recently just asking for advice, like, hey, how do you tune this? Or how do you tune your snare to have, like, one example recently was, how do you tune your snare to have better ghost notes? And I was like, you can't tune your snare to have better ghost notes. You just got to know how to tune your snare how you like it, and then the player, or you, if you're the player, has to play the ghost notes.
Now, when you prep for like a gig to do teching or even playing, do you find yourself listening to that drummer a lot to kind of feel like see their habits and like their ghost note techniques? How do you dive into that kind of stuff before going on the road with them?
Yeah, it's definitely good to do some research if you're going to work for somebody that you haven't worked for in the past. Like this Matt Starr, who plays for Ace Frehley, that gig. I looked up videos of him playing, for sure. I wanted to see his style. He's got like a old school Bonham style with his playing.
Yeah.
His setup is either 24 or 26-inch kick drums that are thin, usually big rack toms, 13 to 15-inch. His floors range from like 16 to 20. And then his snare is normally a regular Black Beauty or just a Ludwig like steel snare, like 14 by 6, 6.5, something like that. So his kit's pretty standard when it comes to like the rock sizes, like old school. But his tuning is a little more flat. He's really picky with the angles. He's really picky with the height of his cymbals. So luckily, the old drum tech gave me like all the measurements that he prefers. So I basically I always have a full Pelican, which is just a brand of case. You've probably heard of it before, but that's what I like to use on tour. So if I don't have my work box, which this gig is a little smaller, so I just travel with a Pelican full of tools instead of a full work box. I always have like measuring tape to do the measuring for Matt for his cymbals and stuff. I have a protractor app on my phone because he likes certain angles to be actually specific to certain degrees, which is interesting, but that's his preference. Then I have cymbal cleaner, drum polish, always extra rags, a bunch of drum keys, Leatherman tool. All of those things are really important because you never know what you're going to be working with. And when you go to do fly dates, that's what we're doing, you get backline rental gear. So you're working with a new kit almost every show.
So do you have any funny disaster stories with backline kits or anything like that? I imagine you do.
Not with backline kits, really? But man, I won't tell the full story because it's so long. But when I first got the gig working for Korn, I went out to Bakersfield, and their old tech was kind enough to show me the rundown of the kit and help me set up the rack that Ray uses, which is an insane, elaborate VW drum rack that almost looks like an upside-down spider. Yeah. It's just so many moving parts on that thing, which is crazy. But luckily, it lives on the riser. It breaks in half, and you just put it in the semi. You take down like cymbals and some of the drums, but most of it lives up there, which is cool. In any case, I did 2 festival dates with them, and then we took like a week break, and then we all went down to Florida to do pre-production for a full 2-month tour that we were going to do with Spain. Well, in transit, the semi that was carrying all of the gear got into an accident. Nobody was hurt, luckily, but the gear was hurt. So we had a bunch of cases completely smashed somehow. And the drum riser got knocked around pretty bad, enough that he had 2 acrylic 24 by 24 inch custom kick drums, and they lived on the riser. And I always had them strapped down with bungee cords, and I tried to cover them up with moving blankets when possible. Unfortunately, in this situation, none of that helped. When I got to Florida the night before we loaded in at 7 a.m. the next morning for pre-production, my production manager texted me and said, "Hey, just so you're aware that the semi wasn't an accident and your drums are damaged. These are the only pictures I have from the driver, but you need to be aware that we're walking into this tomorrow." Ooh. And I was like, okay. So he sent me a picture. One of the kick drums where the spur actually is attached to the drum was completely punctured. It was about I would say, 10-inch circumference of the hole in his acrylic kick drum. And then the other kick drum had about 1.5 foot crack that went right where the spur gets screwed into the actual kick drum.
And those are acrylic, correct?
They were both acrylic, yep. Oh. So when we got there, I was like, all right, well, let's assess all the damage. That's all the kick drums. Without freaking out, I just immediately went into recovery mode. I got to figure out what we're going to do because the band's going to be here in 2 days, and we had only 2 days to go through everything. And this is when COVID was still screwing up flights for everybody. So all of our lighting guys and a lot of our other crew didn't even show up till like 12 o'clock that next night. So like they were a whole day behind. So everybody was like, it was chaos at the beginning of that tour. So I didn't know what I was going to do, so I had to assess the rest of the damage. 3 of the actual DW bars were bent into a V.
Ooh.
That's how bad the wreck was.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that gives you an idea of how intense and how, like, heavy duty whatever happened was. So it was really intense. But in any case, luckily those are the only 2 drums that were damaged. Everything else I had in cases. So one of the stagehands suggested I try to find, like, I was looking for a plastics company. I was like, maybe a plastics company will have the right stuff, because I looked it up online, and you shouldn't use certain kinds of glues with acrylic because it can really mess with the acrylic and sometimes even melt it if the chemicals are wrong. So I found a boat company, because we were in West Palm Beach, Florida. They were a windshield repair company, and they actually took on fixing those kick drums, and I took both kick drums to them, and they had them to me within 3 hours, and they gave me a little kit with a bunch of little chunks of acrylic that I could glue, almost like stitching, like little 1-inch chunks along the cracks to make sure they didn't crack. So we fixed both kick drums, and luckily the main kick drum that was damaged the worst, I was able to switch with the one that was only cracked, not completely punctured, because he uses one as a dummy kick, because he uses a double bass pedal. That was one of the best things about that whole situation. But we used that cracked kick drum all the way up until the last week of the tour, because everybody was out of stock. Pearl couldn't help me. They were way behind because of COVID. They didn't have any supply. They sent me 2 kick drums that were red instead of clear, and they weren't the right sizes, so I couldn't use them. But Ray told me to go ahead and set them up with the Kelly shoe system for the mics just in case. So they were ready to go. I put new heads on them, put a couple logo heads on them, and made sure they had the Kelly shoe system at least set up, which I'm sure you're aware of. Is a cool system that elevates the microphone and kind of keeps it suspended. So yeah, we were able to get through the whole tour. I was able to get some extra parts from DW delivered pretty quickly, and fix those kick drums well enough to go through those shows and still play some killer sold out, like 10 to 15,000 people amphitheater shows, and they sounded killer the rest of the summer.
So that's a badass thinking on your feet. That's badass, man. You came through on that one really well.
Yeah, I mean, I thank the stagehand for the suggestion, because he's the one who really gave me the suggestion to go to that specific company. But I did have the idea, and then he kind of capitalized on it and helped me out. So that was really cool. But that's the kind of thing, as a tech, setting up a drum kit, tuning drums, polishing cymbals, that kind of stuff is like the easiest part of being a drum tech.
Yeah.
Being a drum tech and being a good one is when you can troubleshoot when you have a situation like that happen, and be calm about it, and be able to actually find a solution, not just freak out or quit or like give up, because a lot of people would in that situation. Could you imagine? All right, I'm working for Korn. These drums are now broken. I have 2 days to fix it, and everyone's out of stock, and I can't get anything to help us out. So what do I do?
You're literally talking about the most important instrument in front of 1,000 people. You know what I mean? The heartbeat of the band is failing. You know what I mean? So that, I can understand the pressure and anxiety that goes with all that.
And Ray is a very hard hitter. If whoever listens doesn't know, Ray Luzier is like a super hard hitter. And I mean, for example, he broke 14 cymbals on that 2-month tour.
And he uses Sabian too. They're good stuff.
Yeah, and Sabian was great. They would always send us backups if we needed, but we took 4 cymbal vaults out with us because he knows he breaks them all the time.
Jesus.
And he likes to switch things up sometimes. So like one day he'll be like, you know what, let's throw a China over here in between the electronic drum pads and the hi-hat. I'll be like, all right.
Yeah, he's a real deal.
He's one of the best
right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's a lot of fun. And I'm glad that he lives here in Nashville. As soon as both of our schedules slow down, I'm hoping that we can get together and hang out.
That'd be cool. So before we round it out, I kind of want to talk about what's in the future for you, whatever you're allowed to say. But are you going to go back on the road with any bands playing or teching here in the future?
Yeah, I can divulge. So I have no dates with Aaron Lewis as of right now for the rest of this year. And next year he's doing acoustics for the first 2 or 3 months at least. And then there's talk of maybe some Stain stuff, but no guaranteed dates. They asked me to come back out because I did drum teching and playback for them.
Yeah.
And so they would love to have me come back out, which if I'm not busy, of course I would do it, because that was an easy gig and they're fun to work with. Sal, the drummer for Stain, is super cool and a very good drummer too, if you haven't checked him out.
Yeah.
So right now I actually am flying out first thing tomorrow to drum tech for Ace Frehley Drummer's Matt Starr. We're going to be doing 3 shows: Indiana, Illinois, and then Wisconsin. And then I'll fly back on Sunday. And then the following weekend, my buddies who play for Struggle Jennings, Kareem, who's actually another Mapex drummer, and then my buddy Aaron, who's his bass player, they asked me to come kind of help stage manage and set up the drums and do like a backline.
Nice.
Because they don't really have anybody and they need somebody pretty bad. So they called me in a pinch. So I'm going to go to South Carolina for a one-off with them. And then the week after that, going back out with Ace Frehley for a few dates. And there's been some talk of some other stuff that isn't really guaranteed, so I don't want to necessarily say that. But, I mean, the drum teching world, if you can find a good niche where you're good at your job and reliable, you don't smell too bad on tour, you're not annoying on tour, you show up on time, you don't get drunk all the time, like all of those things are actually a pretty big deal. The hang is what they call it in the industry. If you can hang or like be like pretty chill and like easy to work with on the road, you can almost always find a gig.
Yeah, I guess just being relaxed and handling the pressure, you know.
Yeah.
That's a big
besides that, playing wise, I don't have anything lined up currently. I am looking, but I still am Aaron's drummer if they do full band stuff. But as of right now, it looks like there's going to be a little bit of time. So I need to get the studio finished and get some recordings out there, get some videos out there. And I do have my feelers out with some possibilities here in Nashville for some cool gigs that can hold me over until Aaron does full band again. And then teching wise, there's always something out there for me to do when it comes to teching. But that's the one thing I did want to touch on briefly before we go is when you want to be full time in the music industry, you have to be full time in the music industry. It can't be this 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of deal, because I did that for a little while, and it's not really the way things work. You gotta just dive in if you're going to do it. There are a lot of local backline companies in most cities that you can work for. There's a lot of local stagehands that you can get involved in that kind of give you the rundown of the industry. That'll help you learn how to do lighting, rigging, backline tech stuff, maybe get involved in monitors or front of house engineering. All of those different areas have a huge need in the music industry. And a lot of the older guys that have been doing this for a long time, they're not going to be around forever. So I really hope that there's still going to be like a lot of really good, reliable people. So I really kind of push for it because it is a career that people overlook because it's not something that is really well known. Well, there's not a curriculum out there.
Yeah, I think it's cliche because I think people think it's oversaturated. I think that's the first fear that comes over in people's mind, like too many people trying to do that. You know what I mean? But really, it sounds like it's actually the opposite.
Yeah, I would say if you want to be a musician in Nashville, that's probably oversaturated. Like if you want to be a singer-songwriter, that's for sure going to be an oversaturated market. If you want to play music downtown Broadway, that's an oversaturated market for sure. But when it comes to working in the music industry, there's never going to be enough good technicians or engineers for sure. There will always be a need for it, and there's going to be people retiring. I know COVID made a lot of people retire. They decided to stay home with their families, and like so many new gigs have opened up, but there's just not enough people to fill the void.
That's weird. So it's just weird to hear that. Well, David, this is a real. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, it is weird to hear it, but I just want to always reiterate, like being involved in the music industry as a musician is the best way to do it because you know music, hopefully at least a little bit already. So, like, I would always encourage people to push for it just to see if they can make it happen for their career because it's a really rewarding business to work in.
Yeah, you sound like a happy person. So, you know what I mean? It's all good stuff.
Yeah, man.
Well, David, it's been a real pleasure to have you on, and I look forward to hearing more of your stories in the future. And I didn't realize how depth your career was, and the more I hear about it, you're a real pro, dude. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, Dustin, thanks so much for having me on.
All right, until next time. Thank you.
All right, later.